Of course, in studio with me, Tumaole, Mohlaoli, we're going to reflect just on the application of recusal that was brought before the Zondo Commission of Inquiry today by Jacob Zuma and his lawyer through Advocate Muzi Skakani. Tumaole, what a day, right? And perhaps let's begin with part of the arguments that had been made by Jacob Zuma's lawyer in terms of why they believe that Justice Zondo is not perhaps fit to continue hearing this case. Muzi Skakani making reference to the issue of impartiality. He says, Judge, we're not questioning your integrity, but we have reason to ask whether or not you are in fact impartial. Was he able to show that?
Well, he did his best certainly to show that, and one of the key elements that he brought forward in his argument to try and make his point was the fact that, Jacob Zuma's legal team took exception when watching the Commission of Inquiry to some of the reactions that Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo had been making, saying that as an impartial judge, he has to be seen to be not taking sides, but that when he was hearing testimony from some of the witnesses, he seemed to be almost over-exaggerating in his responses to some of the testimony that they brought forward. They say that he seemed to be leaning more to a biasness when they brought forward these allegations, which they say are very far-fetched and cannot be based on fact. But then what they then again said, Advocate Skakani, saying that they understand that these allegations are very, very serious, but that they also feel that based on Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo's reaction, some of the witnesses who came forward before the Commission came forward with an expectation almost that they were expected to follow a certain narrative, and therefore they would then follow a certain line when they gave their evidence, which would then try to implicate the former head of state in every wrongdoing and effectively absolving them of their own responsibility at the time.
Tumaole, it's interesting to me that Muzi Skakani seems to let the narrative that has evolved or been shaped around the former president rest on the shoulders of Judge Raymond Zondo. He says the Commission is responsible for perpetuating some of those narratives, when of course some of it in fact began long before the Commission of Inquiry was established, and in fact President Zuma himself would have been well aware of the perceptions that existed around him and his presidency.
Absolutely, and these perceptions would be nothing new when you look at what had happened in terms of the state-owned enterprises, when officials within state-owned enterprises, some of them, crying foul, turning, going to the public protector, for instance, during her investigation at the time, and coming forward and giving these, allegations at the time that there was undue influence, and it seemed that everyone was behaving in a way that was being allowed, or they were basically hiding behind the number one, the head of state, when they were doing undue contracts and all sorts of other shenanigans at state-owned enterprises. And so this seemed to be what the questioning was all about, because Advocate Pretorius would then also come back and say, the evident leader, that when you have over 200 witnesses coming forward to the Commission, some of them coming forward and heeding Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo's call for those with evidence to come and give evidence to the Commission. But at every turn, it seems that the former head of state's name was thrown into the mix, that it can be far beyond some conspiracy or a far-reaching coincidence, and that these people are coming through and they are saying without any contradiction that there was some meddling, political meddling, right from the top at every turn, that you can't make that up.
Let's listen, in fact, to part of what Advocate Muzi Skakani had to say earlier in the day.
And I think, Chair, if you frank with me, that undertaking ruling of yours to meet his doctors, I know you were reluctant, but I think, Chair, you missed a golden opportunity yourself, just like we've missed our golden opportunities. Because I think this belief that he doesn't want to come here, and that all of these delays since September last year were because Mr. Zuma is ducking and diving. Others are even making attempts at history that it's Stalingrad. But it's not that, Chair. And so we make that knowing all of those difficulties. And Chair, as I said, I still say today, this Commission has missed the opportunity to get, well, not missed, it's not the right word. the central issues in your terms of reference is the Guptas and what is alleged to have happened and must be investigated, and the centrality of the head of state then. Chair, you're going to finish this report with no version from the Guptas.
Well, there certainly wasn't a shortage of adjectives from Advocate Skakani today, describing some of Zondo's comments during this trial as having frightened his client, which is the former President Jacob Zuma, to appearing before the commission. He believes that Zuma is here to be lynched, quote unquote. He's being sent to be destroyed, especially by those that have been carefully selected to form part of a narrative. Tumaole, Moses Kakane also going as far as questioning the intellect of the Commission of Inquiry, saying, in fact, your selection of witnesses shows us that there wasn't much pursuit of intellectual evidence before this commission, but it was basically to fight political battles.
Absolutely, and that speaks to the issue of tailoring their witnesses just to lead a certain narrative, that these witnesses who then would come before the evidence leaders of the Commission of Inquiry would then kowtow and bow down to whatever the evidence leaders seemed to lean towards, and that they could not stand for themselves. But then, however, when you look at some of the witnesses that have come through and some of the witnesses that were linked closely to the former president, many of them have followed a certain line. Either there's a certain amnesia that comes in consistently with witnesses, or just a plain right refusal to answer questions when they were challenged by the commission's team. So when you look at that, you ask yourself, which witness would Advocate Skakane and Jacob Zuma's legal team have preferred? Because him being the man who's seemingly at the center of the state capture narrative on various occasions, this was put forward by the evidence leader, has tried to dodge or sidestep coming through, making submissions, submitting affidavits and submitting even those doctor's notes to show that, in fact, when he was initially supposed to appear, he couldn't. So this shows a reluctance, according to the evidence leaders, by Jacob Zuma to participate. That begs the question, why? When, in fact, the evidence leader from his side is saying that he is being, basically a victim of a witch hunt and is being put down to the altar and being sacrificed.
All right, so we'll have to wait and see what happens tomorrow at 10 o'clock. That's when we're expecting Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo to make his ruling. This is on the matter of him recusing himself from this particular hearing in as far as it relates to the former President Jacob Zuma.